31 states are locked under extreme heat warnings right now. That number is no exaggeration at all. A heat index of 109 degrees is already hitting Iowa, and Minnesota bodies are not built for this. At 6,000 feet in the Rockies, June snow is falling. Today, 3 crises, 1 country, 0 breaks. The Storm Prediction Center upgraded northeast South Dakota to enhanced risk that is level 3 out of 5. That enhanced risk corridor stretches from northeast South Dakota into northwest Minnesota, which means millions face severe storms. Inside that zone, 363,000 people are directly in the path of an extremely intense supercell this morning. This supercell fired overnight in South Dakota and is tracking toward Fargo, which means impact time is close. SPC issued Mesoscale Convective Discussion 1376, which means forecasters are tracking every single move this storm makes. Damaging wind gusts are the primary hazard today, which means downed trees and power outages are coming. Effective shear of 40 to 50 knots is extreme, which means this supercell can stay dangerous for hours. A couple of tornadoes cannot be ruled out, which means a shelter plan is absolutely essential today. Fargo, Moorhead, Aberdeen, West Fargo, and Wahpeton are all in the path of this morning's supercell. Peak impacts hit Fargo between 8 and 11 a.m., which means the window to prepare is closing fast. After the morning supercell, afternoon storms fire across the upper Midwest, which means the threat continues all day. Mid-level lapse rates near 8 degrees per kilometer are extreme, which means instability goes through the roof. Dew points in the mid to upper 70s are maxed out, which means storm intensity today will be extreme. Dale in Toledo says shear this strong, which means a storm can maintain organization for many dangerous hours. He says severe bow echo outflow can snap utility poles, which means power outages could last for days. The broader slight risk zone covers 6.4 million people, which means the severe threat today is very widespread. Minneapolis, St. Paul, Sioux Falls, and Duluth are inside today's slight risk, which means large hail is possible. Omaha, Lincoln, and Rochester, Minnesota are in the marginal risk. Still 4 million people to account for today. Flip the script while the north gets hammered by storms. The east is absolutely cooking alive today. The heat dome is hammering all 31 states, which means relief is simply nowhere in sight today. Extreme heat warnings do not go up casually, which means the NWS sees a genuine, life-threatening risk here. NWS La Crosse issued an extreme heat warning active now through 1 a.m. Tuesday, a massive coverage area. That warning covers north-central Iowa, southeast Minnesota, and large parts of central and southwest Wisconsin. Heat index of 109 degrees expected in the warning zone core, which means dangerous conditions all afternoon. Mitchell, Howard, Winneshiek, Floyd, and dozens more Iowa and Wisconsin counties are all inside that warning today. The overnight picture is the worst part. Lows stuck in the upper 70s, which means 0 overnight recovery. When overnight temps refuse to drop, the body has no recovery window, which means risk compounds nightly. Margaret, a retired nurse from Lake Charles, spent decades treating heat emergencies. She says this setup is serious. She says without overnight cooling, risk compounds, which means night 2 and night 3 get more dangerous. Gulf moisture streams northward without pause, which means dew points stay oppressively high from Texas to Michigan. That moisture feed keeps heat indexes above 105 degrees across an enormous section of the country today. Kansas City is at a 106-degree heat index today, which means dangerous conditions for anyone outdoors. St. Louis is in the thick of it too. 107 to 109-degree heat indexes are arriving today. Indianapolis is under an excessive heat warning, which means heat indexes are pushing near 105 degrees this afternoon. Nashville's getting cooked, 103-degree heat index with overnight humidity that will just not quit at all. Memphis is deep in the heat vice today. 106-degree heat index forecast through at least midweek. Sandra in Alexandria says this July level heat arrived 3 weeks early, which means no summer break is coming. Atlanta is at a 100-degree heat index, the absolute worst. Heat arrives later in the week ahead. 3 crises at once, 31 states baking, enhanced risk in the Dakotas, and June snow in the Rockies. Frank, a retired teacher from Springfield, calls June 2026 the most relentless weather month of his entire life. Frank says his former students are scattered across both zones. He worries about every single one of them. Here is the craziest part of today's forecast. This one is going to absolutely blow your mind. At 6,000 feet in the Rocky Mountains, snow is actually falling right now in late June 2026. Idaho. Montana and Wyoming are seeing snow levels drop all the way down to 6,000 feet today. That is thousands of feet below where June snow normally falls, which means this cold intrusion is extreme. Temperatures across the Pacific Northwest and Northern Rockies are running 20 to 35 degrees below normal today. Earl, a retired rancher from western South Dakota, is blown away. This cold snapshot of June is historic. He says Boise is nearly 25 degrees below June normal, which means summer simply never arrived there. His cattle in the mountain pastures are absolutely baffled. Summer just vanished on them overnight without warning. A deep Pacific trough is driving this 6,000-foot snow line, which means cold air is reaching far south. That cold air is colliding with the heat dome, which means violent storms erupt right at the boundary. That battle boundary runs from the northern plains through the Great Lakes down into the Ohio Valley. The enhanced risk zone is parked right on that collision boundary, which means the storm threat is extreme. Earl says Seattle and Portland feel more like September than June, which means the cold anomaly is extreme. Boise hit a low of 42 degrees overnight, while Atlanta bottomed out at 81. A wild 39-degree gap. A 39-degree overnight temperature gap between 2 American cities on the same night is a remarkable statistic. Hot, dry air in the Southwest is extreme fire weather, which means one spark could start a catastrophe. Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and New Mexico are under red flag warnings, which means firefighters are on high alert. Strong gusty winds combined with extremely low humidity means any spark in the Southwest will spread dangerously fast. Outflow winds from afternoon thunderstorms can sweep into dry terrain, which means the fire threat compounds tonight. Any active fire in the Southwest today needs extreme caution through this entire overnight and into tomorrow. Frank in Springfield says the heat index in nearby Cincinnati is already pushing 104 to 108 degrees today. Columbus and Cleveland are baking heat index near 100 to 105 degrees, which means dangerous conditions today. Detroit and Toledo are getting hammered by this dome heat index values near 100 to 103 degrees today. Sandra says overnight lows in Alexandria have not dropped below 78 in 3 days, which means no relief. Washington, D.C. faces a 107 to 109 degree heat index, which means Thursday and Friday will be brutal. Philadelphia is in the same brutal corridor, heat index close to 105 degrees, arriving by this afternoon. New York City sees 100 to 104 degree heat indexes by midweek, which means millions must prepare now. Boston is not being spared. Heat index values near 100 degrees are arriving by Wednesday afternoon. The eastern seaboard is going to feel brutal through the 4th of July holiday period. Louisville and Cincinnati are seeing overnight lows in the upper 70s, which means zero overnight recovery. Charlotte is looking at 103 to 107 degree heat indexes, which means time to act is now. Richmond and Virginia Beach get cooked by Wednesday and Thursday. Emergency cooling resources will be stretched thin. Little Rock. Arkansas is baking at a 104 degree heat index. The Delta heat is legitimately brutal today. Jackson and Birmingham are both under excessive heat warnings, which means heat illness risk is elevated through Wednesday. The NWS heat risk tool is at extreme to major levels, which means vulnerable populations face genuine danger today. That extreme designation means heat illness and death are likely, which means precautions today are absolutely non-negotiable. Elderly residents, outdoor workers, and anyone without air conditioning face the absolute highest risk from this heat today. Check on your neighbors, especially the elderly, and make sure everyone has cool air, which means act today. Cooling centers are open in dozens of cities today, which means no excuse to stay in the heat. Never leave children or pets in a parked vehicle. Car interiors reach lethal temperatures in minutes. Comment below with your city. Tell us which areas are feeling this heat and these storms the hardest. Pull back and look at the full picture. What is happening across the U.S. today is genuinely historic. 31 states under heat warnings, 109-degree heat indexes. In Iowa, 6,000-foot June snow all today. This is not a normal summer pattern, which means forecasters are looking at a genuinely rare atmospheric event. The ridge is running 3 to 4 standard deviations above normal, which means this pattern is historically rare. Margaret in Lake Charles puts it plainly, no overnight cooling means the body gets absolutely no recovery time. That is what extreme heat does over days, which means today and tonight both demand serious action. WPC is flagging a historic heat wave peaking Thursday and Friday, which means the worst is still ahead. Some guidance hints at all-time records along the East Coast, which means potential records for many cities. Washington, D.C. and Philadelphia could challenge or break monthly records by Thursday if current models verify. The NBM shows 100 to 105-degree maximum temperatures from the Carolinas all the way to New England. Dale in Toledo says he has seen rough summers, but this one feels completely different to him. Before the heat peak arrives, Tuesday and Wednesday storms fire along the ridge, which means no break yet. Tomorrow's Tuesday outlook brings a fresh, severe weather round here, is what you need to know. Northern Wisconsin and the Upper Peninsula of Michigan are in the Tuesday slight risk bullseye for storms. Eau Claire, Wausau, Marquette, and Marshfield are inside Tuesday's slight risk, which means severe storms are likely. About 1.2 million people fall inside Tuesday's slight risk zone. Damaging winds are the primary concern there. Storms will be outflow dominant in Wisconsin and Michigan, which means fast-moving wind gusts are the main hazard. The Tuesday setup features a stall boundary with upper 70s dew points, which means instability reloads fast overnight. That moisture does not leave overnight, which means the atmosphere reloads fast for Tuesday's second wave. Beyond Wisconsin and Michigan, 16 million people are in the marginal risk, which means broad awareness is needed. Minneapolis and St. Paul are watching for Tuesday storms, which means the severe threat continues into the week. Rochester, New York, and Syracuse are both inside Tuesday's marginal risk evening storms look possible for that corridor. If you are in Wisconsin, Michigan, or the upper Great Lakes area, bookmark this and check back tonight. Wisconsin and Michigan, the big question tonight is whether storms arrive before sunset or into the evening. Large hail up to an inch and severe gusts are the primary Tuesday concerns across Wisconsin and Michigan. If storm mode turns cellular Tuesday evening, which means the tornado risk could tick upward fairly quickly. Earl says the contrast between his cold mountain air and the scorching east is absolutely wild today. He watched cattle graze in 55-degree air while Iowa showed 109-degree heat indexes, which means two Americas today. Sandra in Alexandria says the heat plus humidity is worse than anything she has experienced in Virginia before. 95-degree air plus 80% humidity pushes heat indexes above 105, which means outdoor exposure is dangerous. Humidity hits harder than dry temperature in a dome, which means Great Lakes cities get blindsided hard. Chicago is on the edge of the heat zone, a heat index around 100 to 103 degrees today. Milwaukee is watching for the heat index to spike above 100, which means dangerous conditions persist into Wednesday. Margaret says heat strokes come on faster and more subtly than expected, which means watch everyone around you. Warning signs include confusion, hot, dry skin, and absence of sweating. Any of those means call 911 immediately. If someone near you stops sweating in extreme heat, that is a medical emergency, not a wait and see. Frank says the folks most at risk always underestimate how fast conditions deteriorate in extreme heat. Overconfidence in extreme weather is dangerous. The ones who say it will not hit them are always wrong. In the enhanced risk zone today, your safe action window is already closing, which means act fast. Severe thunderstorm watches for parts of the Dakotas and Minnesota are expected throughout this morning. If a tornado warning drops in your county today, and a couple may shelter immediately with zero hesitation. The most dangerous thing in a tornado warning is waiting to see if it actually comes near you. Dale never waits on a warning. He gets his family to the basement the moment sirens go off. Here is what the next few days look like, and the heat situation is not relaxing anytime soon. Wednesday brings the heat dome to near peak strength across the mid-Atlantic and Northeast. The worst arrives then. Thursday and Friday could be the hottest two-day stretch on record from Washington, D.C. to Boston. Some models hint at all-time record highs, which means even worst-case scenarios deserve serious consideration today. The July 4th holiday is shaping up as one of the most dangerous heat stretches on record. By July 4th, some central U.S. moderation may begin, but the East holds on to the heat dome. Before that relief comes, millions need to make smart decisions today, not tomorrow, not later. Starting today. Never exercise outdoors during afternoon hours on extreme heat warning days. Save any activity for early morning only. If your power goes out during this heat wave, get to cool air fast. It is life-threatening. Cooling centers, libraries, malls, and movie theaters are all valid options if you lose air conditioning today. The people most at risk from extreme heat are often the least connected to weather forecast information available. Sharing this forecast with someone in one of these cities could make a real difference for them today. Comment below, storm zone, heat dome, or cold northwest. Which one describes your weather situation today? Sandra says Alexandria has weathered brutal DC summers before, but nothing like this intensity arriving in June. Heat arriving in late June rather than mid-July makes this event historic, which means records are at risk. Late June heat domes this intense are rare, which means this event deserves a place in the record books. Earl says he has never seen June snow this low on the mountain, and he has seen everything. The 6,000-foot snow line paired with the 109-degree heat index, which means one country, two different realities. These three numbers tell the whole story worth saying one final time before we wrap this forecast up. 31 states locked under extreme heat warnings. That coverage is historically extraordinary for any single weather event. Heat index values of 109 degrees are already being recorded across Iowa and Minnesota as you watch this. At 6,000 feet in the Rockies, June snow is still falling on what should be a summer afternoon. 3 crises, 1 continent. Take every single one of them completely seriously, starting today.